Kevin, please. You ruined my entire life. Was it because you were bitter about doing a little bit of housework? You brought this entirely on yourself. Ethan. Enjoy the ruins. If you told me a few months ago that my brother-in-law would be begging me for mercy on his knees, I wouldn't have believed you. But some people have to learn the hard way. It all started with this. You're the one obsessed with keeping things spotless, right? Then I'll leave the place in your expert hands. Just handle it like you always do. With a smug, condescending smirk, my brother-in-law, Ethan, tossed those words over his shoulder before strutting out the front door. And once again, the apartment was an absolute war zone. Clothes he'd stripped off were strewn across the living room couch like a hurricane hit it, and empty takeout boxes were left rotting right on the coffee table. The kitchen sink was a literal mountain of greasy plates and crusty coffee mugs, releasing a foul, stomach-turning odor into the air. Honestly, how could one single human being create this much of a disaster zone in just the 2 days since my last deep clean? His 2-year-old daughter, Lily, completely abandoned by her dad for the afternoon, timidly tugged at the hem of my shirt, her big eyes looking down at the floor. I let out a heavy sigh, scooped her up into a warm hug, and let my mind drift. One day, Ethan, one day, I'm going to make you pay for every single bit of this. My name is Kevin. I'm 25 years old, and I work as a professional home management and cleaning expert, running my own premium, high-end housekeeping service. When people here in the U.S. hear the word housekeeper, they usually picture a middle-aged woman working for an ultra-wealthy estate, straight out of an old TV show. So whenever I tell my friends or acquaintances what I actually do for a living, their jaws usually drop. Some people just can't filter themselves and say things like, "Why housekeeping, Kevin? You're a young guy. Aren't there better career tracks out there?" But honestly, I've been incredibly skilled at organization and domestic work since I was a kid. If my hard work can turn someone's chaotic, stressful environment into a peaceful sanctuary, it brings me genuine happiness. Besides, high-end cleaning experts are in massive demand these days. Between dual-income corporate couples, elderly folks, and busy single professionals, people need real help keeping their lives together. At first, my parents were a bit puzzled by my career choice, but now they support my business 100%. Still, some people just can't shake off their elitist, negative stereotypes. Take my brother-in-law, Ethan. He's married to my older sister, Chloe. Now, Chloe and I have always been super close. We're the best of friends and hang out all the time. But Ethan? I could never bring myself to tolerate him. The very first time we met, he openly mocked my profession. The second my sister stepped out of the room, he sneered and said, "Aren't maids supposed to be older women? It's pretty embarrassing for a guy your age to have a job where people just boss you around and tell you to scrub toilets. I just don't get it." His words made my blood boil. I didn't need his validation, but being ridiculed by a complete stranger at a family dinner was infuriating. I seriously considered telling Chloe right then and there, but she was so deeply infatuated with him and so excited about their upcoming wedding that I didn't want to shatter her happiness. Instead, I just chose to keep my distance from Ethan whenever possible. Then, my niece Lily was born. One weekend, Ethan texted me out of the blue. SFX, phone text chime. "Hey man, can you swing by the apartment? Do me a quickie favor." It was my only day off that week, and the last thing I wanted to do was see his face, but refusing him outright always created a massive, dramatic blowout, so I reluctantly agreed. My sister Chloe was away in Chicago on a corporate business 7172 trip at the time. The moment I stepped inside their apartment, I was utterly paralyzed. The place looked like a literal landfill. Trash, Amazon boxes, and laundry littered every square inch of the hardwood floor. You couldn't take a single step without crushing something. The overwhelming stench of spoiled milk and old leftovers filled the air. Garbage bags, some literally torn open and leaking a sticky, foul-smelling liquid, were piled up in the corners. The kitchen counters were completely buried under dirty dishes. Just as I was trying to process the sheer filth, Ethan spoke up in a casual, breezy tone. "Hey, you're a professional cleaner, right? You're good at this stuff. Can you just knock this out for free? I mean, we're family, man. I've got plans with the guys at a sports bar, so I'm heading out. Just make sure the place is sparkling by the time I get back tonight." I was completely speechless. This guy expected me to clean up his biohazard of an apartment for $0, and he had the absolute audacity to give me a deadline. He was a stay-at-home husband while my sister brought home the heavy paycheck. Shouldn't he be managing his own house? And wasn't this the exact same guy who called my job embarrassing? Now he wanted a handout just because we shared a last name. I had a million things to say, but for my sister's sake, I bit my tongue and stayed silent. Unfortunately, Ethan's selfishness didn't stop at the cleaning. Right before walking out, he dumped my 2-year-old niece, Lily, on me too. At this point, my patience was hanging by a thread. Look, it's not that I dislike kids, but the only child I had ever watched before was a distant cousin, and he was a 5th grader. I had absolutely zero experience caring for a toddler. I wasn't joking when I told him I wasn't qualified. If she choked on something or got hurt under my watch, I wouldn't be able to live with the responsibility. I'm a house manager, Ethan, not a babysitter, I protested. This isn't safe. You need to hire a professional nanny or put her in a drop-in daycare for the afternoon. But Ethan just waved his hand, brushing off my concerns. Same difference, bro. Besides, babysitters and daycares in this city cost a fortune. Why would I waste my wife's hard-earned money on a nanny when I have you? I tried to refuse a second time, but his face hardened. He smirked and leaned in close. Listen to me carefully, Kevin. If you don't help me out today, I'll tell Chloe I want a divorce, and I'll make sure she knows it's entirely your fault for refusing to help our family. He was using my sister's marriage as toxic emotional leverage. I didn't want to cause a devastating crisis for Chloe, so I reluctantly surrendered, telling myself it was just this one time. Looking back, that was the biggest mistake of my life. The deep clean was an absolute nightmare. Trash was scattered everywhere with zero attempt at recycling. The second I lifted one of the damp garbage bags from the kitchen corner, fruit flies and bugs swarmed out. It was completely revolting. I deal with gross situations all the time because of my job, but that doesn't mean I enjoy it on my day off. To make matters worse, the laundry was a total disaster. Bright red shirts thrown in with white linens and delicate items completely ruined. Cleaning the physical apartment was exhausting, but keeping an eye on Lily was even harder. She wasn't a bad kid, just incredibly high energy. The second something shiny caught her attention, she'd bolt toward it. I had to stay on high alert every single second. She kept clinging to my legs while I was trying to scrub the floors, begging me to play blocks with her. I barely managed to keep up with both tasks. Somehow, I survived the day. But when Ethan rolled back in that evening, smelling like beer and wings, he didn't offer a single word of appreciation. Instead, he looked around, frowned, and snapped seriously. Couldn't you have made the bathroom mirrors a bit cleaner? A professional should make the place look like a luxury hotel. And why did you feed Lily packaged organic toddler snacks? That stuff is processed trash. You should have cooked her a fresh, homemade organic meal. Being busy is no excuse for laziness, Kevin. Even after I spent my precious day off cleaning his disgusting mess for free, he had the nerve to stand there and lecture me. His ungratefulness made my blood boil, but that was only the beginning of my troubles. Even though I had made it crystal clear that that weekend was a one-time favor, Ethan began taking total advantage of me. He always seemed to know my exact work schedule, likely extracting the information casually from my sister. On my designated days off, he would either spam my phone with calls or show up unannounced at my apartment complex, demanding my labor. When I tried ignoring his texts, he would literally pound on my apartment door, yelling through the hallway, "I know you're in there. Kevin, open the door." Not wanting to cause a massive scene and get evicted by my landlord for disturbing the neighbors, I would eventually cave. He would then drag me back to his place, treating me like a personal servant. I repeatedly told him I wouldn't work for free and demanded he pay my standard hourly rate. But every single time he just scoffed. Why on earth would I pay you? Absolutely not. You're my brother-in-law. While I was busy scrubbing grout and organizing his chaotic apartment, Ethan would disappear into the city for hours at a time. When I asked where he was going, he coldly replied, "That's strictly none of your business." Over the next 2 months, little Lily actually grew more attached to me than to her own father, since I was the one consistently feeding her, reading to her, and keeping her safe. She started listening to my instructions more than his, which made the cleaning slightly easier. However, Ethan noticed the bond, and it made him absolutely furious. "Don't get ahead of yourself, nanny boy," he sneered one afternoon. "You're not a parent, and you're not even married." I wanted to scream back. "If you have such a massive problem with it, why don't you stay home and raise your own daughter?" I had absolutely no intention of letting him walk all over me forever, but I needed a concrete plan. And thankfully, I stumbled upon exactly what I needed while cleaning his master bedroom. A few weeks later, Ethan called me over again, using the same old aggressive routine. "Chloe gets back from her week-long conference tomorrow morning," he said over the phone. "I need this place looking like a model home." I went over, cleaned every room without a single complaint, and left as soon as the job was done. The next afternoon, my phone rang. SFX. Phone ringing. It was Ethan, and he sounded absolutely hysterical. "Are you kidding me right now? Where the hell are you?" he shrieked into the speaker. Playing completely dumb, I replied calmly. "Hey, Ethan, what's wrong? Don't play stupid with me, Kevin," he roared, his voice cracking with rage. "You told Chloe about her, didn't you? You ruined everything." Yes, Ethan had been cheating on my sister. While deep cleaning and organizing the master bedroom closet the day before, I had found undeniable, concrete proof of his infidelity. Hidden away at the bottom of a shoe organizer was a Polaroid photo of Ethan wrapped tightly in another woman's arms, looking incredibly cozy at a high-end lounge. Furthermore, his side of the closet was filled with brand-new, ultra-expensive designer watches and premium leather jackets, things that were clearly luxury gifts. Given that he didn't have an income and my sister gave him a strict, average monthly allowance, there was absolutely no way they could afford those items. And knowing his parents were just retired, low-income postal workers, it didn't come from them either. I had secretly taken high-resolution photos of all the evidence with my phone before neatly putting everything back in its place. Over the previous few weeks, I had also been building a digital file, recording his voice memos demanding I clean for free, capturing video footage of him aggressively screaming outside my apartment door, and logging every single instance of his manipulation. Once I had a foolproof file, I laid it all out for my sister Chloe the second she landed at the airport. It turned out Ethan had been sending Chloe photos of the spotless apartment while she was traveling, taking full credit for my hard work to prove he was a supportive house husband. When I revealed the financial records, the blackmail, and the photo of the other woman, Chloe's face turned white, then bright red with pure fury. "I had absolutely no idea," she whispered, tears streaming down her face as she apologized to me over and over again. "I never meant to doubt you, Kevin. If I had known he was treating you like a servant and neglecting our daughter while I was funding his lifestyle, I would have kicked him to the curb months ago. I cannot forgive this. He is done." Determined to protect Lily, Chloe immediately retained a top-tier family lawyer, filed for emergency divorce, and moved to secure full custody. To ensure Ethan wouldn't show up at my place to retaliate, I worked with my leasing office to break my lease early and moved into a beautiful new apartment across town. As expected, Ethan paid a surprise visit to my old place to scream at me, only to find an empty unit. When he realized I had slipped through his fingers, he called my phone in a total panic. "Kevin, please. You have to talk to Chloe. Convince her not to go through with the divorce. I can't lose this lifestyle. I can't lose my family," he pleaded. Then, his desperation turned into ugly blame. "If you hadn't been a snitch, we could have stayed a happy, perfect couple forever. Was it because you were bitter about doing a little bit of housework? How dare you ruin my life?" He even tried to hit me with a pathetic guilt trip. "Because of your petty jealousy, my daughter is going to grow up in a broken, single-parent home. Do you have any idea how much psychological damage that will cause her? How are you going to take responsibility for ruining a child's life?" At first, his desperate, unhinged screaming through the phone startled me. But as I sat back on the couch of my brand-new apartment, a strange, profound sense of calm washed over me. How can a human being be this narcissistic and delusional? I wondered. It was beyond comprehension. "I think the divorce is the best thing that ever happened to this family, Ethan," I told him firmly, my voice ice cold. "I will never convince my sister to take back a liar. You brought this entirely on yourself by cheating on a woman who provided everything for you. No brother on earth would stay silent after discovering his sister was being betrayed. And as for Lily, she's a million times better off being raised by a single, loving, hardworking mother than by a neglectful, toxic father who only cares about himself. We're going to take care of Chloe, so don't you worry about us. Ethan completely broke down on the line, sobbing hysterically. I'll apologize. I'll pay you your full commercial hourly rate for every single hour of cleaning you did. Please, Kevin, just help me fix this. But my answer was final. I hung up the phone and blocked his number. The divorce process dragged on for months because Ethan stubbornly tried to fight it, refusing to sign the paperwork. But in the end, faced with a mountain of evidence, he had no choice. Since he was completely unemployed, had a documented history of neglecting his child, and was proven unfaithful, the family court deemed him entirely unfit for custody. Chloe was granted sole legal and physical parental rights. To my immense relief, her lawyer also managed to secure a massive financial settlement, not just from Ethan, but a civil suit payout from the wealthy woman he was having the affair with for alienation of affection. Since Ethan had no savings, he was forced to take out massive personal loans and borrow from predatory lenders just to pay off his legal debts and what he owed my sister. And to top it all off, the judge ordered him to financially compensate me for the thousands of dollars of free labor he extorted through coercion. Because of Chloe's demanding corporate travel schedule, our parents gladly stepped in to help raise Lily. At first, the poor little girl missed her dad, but over time, surrounded by a stable, loving environment, she adjusted beautifully and found incredible happiness in her grandparents' care. I honestly thought that was the absolute end of the saga. But a few weeks ago, I ran into Ethan outside a downtown subway station. SFX, subway train rumbling sound. I barely even recognized him. The smug, well-dressed, arrogant guy was completely gone. He looked exhausted, his face pale, gaunt, and worn down to the bone. After the divorce went through, he had desperately tried to secure a permanent future with a wealthy woman he had been seeing. But as it turned out, she was just using him for fun. Furious that her own husband found out and that she had to pay a massive legal settlement to Chloe, she cut ties with Ethan immediately and blocked him on everything. To make matters worse, Ethan's own parents were so deeply disgusted by his behavior, his cheating, and a shame he brought upon the family that they completely disowned him. With no financial safety net and a ruined credit score, he ended up living in a tiny, cramped studio apartment on the edge of the city, juggling 2 miserable part-time retail jobs just to pay off his staggering debts. The moment his hollow eyes locked onto me, he rushed forward, clinging to his very last shred of hope. "Kevin, please, man," he begged, his voice trembling as he reached out. "I want to get back together with Chloe. I'll get down on my knees right here on the sidewalk if I have to. Just talk to her for me. Tell her I've changed." Even as I looked at him, standing there in absolute ruins, I felt a grand total of zero sympathy. He hadn't changed. He was just facing the consequences of his own actions. He had single-handedly destroyed his own comfortable life through greed and malice. "Give up on my sister, Ethan," I said, looking him dead in the eye with an icy glare. "She's thriving without you. And if you ever follow me, text my family, or come near us again, I won't hesitate to call the police and slap a restraining order on you. Walk away." His face went completely pale, and he turned around, disappearing into the crowded subway station. That was the last time I ever saw him. As for me, my home management business is booming, and I'm still working hard every day with the unwavering love and support of my amazing family. Thanks for watching, guys. If you love this story of justice, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. See you in the next video. Stay tuned.